Tired of using the free version of SketchUp? Want to make renderings like this? Or maybe you want to improve your workflow from design to finished product. How often do you need to change a design for a client and it takes much longer than you expect? Well, Fusion 360 is free and the answer. Hey, it's Justin. If you're new here, I'm in Portland CNC, a CNC shop in Portland, Oregon. I'd love to tell you about the benefits of Fusion 360. You might be asking yourself, why should I trust this guy? Well, I went to design school and have, nearly 15 years of experience with CAD software. Fusion 360 and SketchUp are CAD software. I use this kind of software every day for my work and often for fun too. Anyway, this is going to be a series of videos on how to start using Fusion 360 if you're a woodworker or a maker. Quick, hit the subscribe and the bell. You'll be notified when we make more in this series. It's probably most helpful to download Fusion 360 now. Check for links in the description. Keep in mind there's a totally free license and it's quick to install on Windows or Mac. Why use Fusion 360? Well, you've probably heard the phrase work smarter, not harder. Fusion 360 is a computer-aided design software, or CAD, that runs on Windows and Mac. What's different about Fusion is it uses the cloud to sync your project files. Unlike most other CAD software, Fusion includes many types of software inside. You can use design tools, you can render, make animations, simulation testing, you can make manufacturing output like CAM, like we do, or you can even produce drawings. That was a lot of features and may sound overwhelming, but don't worry, we'll break it down and make it easy to understand. The takeaway is Fusion is powerful, but you can use what you want of it and ignore the rest. When you first get Fusion 360 installed, it should look more or less like this. I'm running the Mac version, but there's no functional difference between Mac and Windows. Let's go over the basics so you can get familiar. I mentioned that Fusion 360 has many types of software built into one. When you launch Fusion 360, a new document will load and you'll start in the design workspace. If you click the design drop-down, you can switch between workspaces. For today, we won't dig into any others, but go ahead and play around with the rest when you have time. The bar across the top is the toolbar or ribbon. This is where your tools live. You can click any of these icons to start using the tool. You can also set up keyboard shortcuts, but we'll get to that later. On the left of the screen is the browser, where all the things you create will live in an outline-like list. There's nothing really here now, but soon we'll change that. Across the bottom is the timeline. This is one of the most powerful parts of Fusion 360. Fusion uses parametric or history-based modeling. This means you can always go back and make a change to any part of your design while the history is turned on. Moving to the top right is the view cube. You can change view settings, and it gives you an orientation reference for your model. Clicking your name in the upper right corner, you can find account info, preferences, etc. Click the question mark and you'll see a bunch of useful help items. The quick setup being one of the most helpful, as you can quickly remind yourself of how the controls work and easily switch between different styles. Personally, I use Tinkercad because it's most similar to Rhino, which is what I came up on. Okay, let's get to making something. First up is sketches. If you're coming from SketchUp or really any CAD software, the most basic form of a CAD model is 2D lines or points. In Fusion 360, sketches are important to what comes next because Fusion is a parametric modeling software. That means that objects can have a relationship that you define. That can be as simple as dimensions or as complex as formulas that automatically change, like, say, how many shelves are in a cabinet based on the width dimension. For now, let's keep it simple and just begin with a basic sketch. To start a sketch, head over to the button that has a series of line segments and a green plus on the toolbar. Next, select a plane to draw on. Let's choose this bottom one. It's essentially a plan view. Alright, we are in sketch mode now. So our toolbar here changed, and we have the sketch commands available. There's more if you do the drop downs. The normal one is line, which I commonly use L on the keyboard, but we'll do it the click way for now. So you can start drawing anywhere. And part of what's great about Fusion is it doesn't really matter where you draw at first. You just kind of want to get it down. So I'm just drawing kind of random lines here. That's kind of a mess. I didn't dimension any of that, but that's fine. So we can go over to dimension. Say I want to make from here to here 8 inches. It's close to 8. Let's make it 10. So I type in 10 inches, hit enter. We've defined that. I'm going to go to the top view here, a little more clear. So I can still move these around pretty easily. because they're not constrained in any way. This has been constrained as a right angle, and the constraints are up here. So that just means, you know, do I want to constrain a line to be only horizontal or vertical, or parallel to another one, or in this case, this is perpendicular. So if I do parallel between here and here, it's going to snap that to be whatever this one is permanently. You can change it if you need to. So I want to make another dimension. Let's go up to dimension. I want this side to be 6 inches. That's good. And actually I'm going to keep this at an angle because that's fairly interesting. So I click dimension, dimension here, and then here, and we get an angle, which is pretty nice. So we want some kind of crazy angle like 86. I don't know why you do that, but why not? So that's interesting. We've got a good start. Maybe we want to draw a circle in that. So center diameter circle. And instead of worrying about where it is, I just draw my circle and I can dimension it afterwards. So I hit D or dimension, click the circle. I want a 1.25 inch circle. That's a diameter. But it's kind of floating out in space. So let's do a dimension again and click here, which is going to go from the center to this wall. That's weird. So let's make it 2.5 inches. And I actually want it to be centered on this wall over here. So I'm going to click horizontal and then hold shift on the keyboard. And you're going to a little thing that pops up and allows you to select the midpoint of this line. And then I'll click here. And so now we've said I want a horizontal line that's invisible between here and here. That's a little bit of an advanced trick, but I really love that and use it all the time. So now any of these things are totally changeable if we didn't like how they got set up. This could be 1.75 inches. We could change this to be 3 inches. What's really great is we can say I want this one. So I've got it selected. I've double clicked on it and I click up here. It's going to take the dimension D22, the representation, and I say divide by 2. So now whatever this one is, go away, you little box. Whatever D22 is, or 10, so I want that to be 12 now. Now it's going to be 6 down here. Get my origin out of the way. So there's a couple little tricks to get started. That's a small example of how you can get into sketching. Let's finish the sketch. And we'll see it in this view. It's just back into the design workspace outside of the sketch mode. So you can see down here, we've now got a sketch that's set up down in our timeline. And it's also in the browser here. So that's sketch 1. I like to change these names right away. So I just click twice, click once, click twice. And we're going to call that the plan. So I can turn that on and off with this little eyeball. It's a good idea to save. So we're going to save this as WW sketches. So obviously we're not just going to do something with a sketch, but let's say we wanted to make this some kind of weird sculptural piece. So we're going to click extrude, which is essentially the same. If you're familiar with SketchUp, you do push-pull a lot. Well, extrude is the proper name for the kind of generic thing you're doing. You're creating the thing out of a profile. So this is the profile, and it's kind of letting me know that this is where we're going to select by when I hover over it. And once I click, you're going to see over here that the little dialog window, there's some tips if you hit the little eye. Let's bring this over here in the center. It's showing me I have one thing selected. So this is very much like what you're used to if you use SketchUp or even Rhino. So if I click and drag, I can pull this up as far as I want. So it's very dynamic. I can do fancy things like taper it. I don't really want that right now. So we're going to say 0 on taper. So over here, you can control really any of these things, or you can do it kind of manually by clicking and dragging. And let's make this 8.25 inches. And there's a whole lot of settings here that you can get into. where the starting place is if we offset it down. So let's say we wanted to start an inch below, 2 inches below that profile. This is very useful stuff, but maybe a little bit advanced for the moment. You can do symmetrical. Let's just say that's good for now. I'm going to actually change it back to profile just to keep it simple. So we're 8.5 inches above. And we've got a pretty basic little shape here. Okay, well we don't really like how that looks. It's kind of goofy. So we're going to go back and right click on the sketch down here. As you now see, we have an extrude too. So I can get rid of that by dragging it back. Dragging the little current time. So this is like your bar here is where you are in the model timeline. So we don't like that. We're going to go back and you can edit any of these things at the bottom. They're also over here in your browser. So like your file explorer of your parts of your model. Right click on the sketch, edit sketch, and we're back into editing that sketch. So what's really awesome about this is constantly editable. You can see how this would be super useful if your client comes to you and says, oh man, actually this piece is 11.88 or 821.576 inches, and now everything's dynamically updated. We actually want this to be 8 inches now, and this should be 74. And we actually need another circle over here. It's bigger. So we've done all that. We push finish sketch, and our totally updated model is ready to go. So you can see how if we had a bunch of features here, the one thing we have to do is go back and edit our extrude because we're missing that other box. So you can hold command or control, I believe, on Windows. I'm not sure. Or you can just get rid of this and click again in the box inside the boundary of the sketch. And we actually want that to be 10 inches now with a 5-degree taper. Let's go the other way. 2-degree taper. That's crazy. Okay. And we're back into a perfectly modeled piece. Let's say the next step is we want to round the edges. So we click fillet up here. And now we've got a dialog box asking, what do we want to fillet? And we select the edges here on the top. So we can select all the edges we want. Let's say the top ones we only want selected. We're going to make those 375, a 3/8 inch fillet. Maybe we actually want this part too, the upper edges. What we're doing is the second piece. So we push this plus, and now we've got 2 different fillets we can do at the same time. We're going to make this one an inch. So what's really great is these are totally dynamic now, and they figure out how to merge all these corners for you, and you didn't have to think about it back in your sketch. Actually, I'm going to add one more. Let's round these guys over even. We can get real crazy and break it. So that's a 2-inch on the inside there. It's kind of a cool feature. So if that makes sense, so essentially what I've done is, if we start over, make a sketch, extruded that sketch by going up to extrude. We've extruded that, and anytime we make a change in this timeline, it's affected from the left to the right all the way through. So we've added these fillets, and maybe we don't want those fillets anymore. Just momentarily, we can right click, suppress the feature, and they're gone. So we can play around with this in a different way. Let's start another model. Go up to this file here, click new design, turn on your origin. We're going to create some parameters. So that's essentially what we were doing when we were making drawings before. Anytime we'd make a sketch here in the other file, these are parameters. We were just doing them in the model space. So what we're going to do in our new file is go to change parameters under modify. So this is just like a little spreadsheet where you can type in anything you want, and it's a definition for something that we can use later. So click plus on use user parameters. We're going to make a little cabinet here. I think it's going to be a good example of how to do this quickly, and something we actually do quite often. Type in width is your first one. We're going to make that 60 inches. You could change your units here. We're going to use it inches. This is a place where you can make a note like overall width to remind yourself later. Click OK. Click plus. Make another one. We're going to do a height. That's going to be 35 inches. Click another one. We'll make depth 24 inches. Another ply 0.72 inches. Click OK. So now we've got a definition. These are what we're going to remember to type in. OK. We're going to make a sketch. I'm going to click the front face, or draw on the front view. Click the front of the view cube over here. So I'll turn our view here. Now we're going to use the rectangle command and draw the outside of our cabinet. So you can start anywhere. Click a corner. You're going to see as we drag this out, we have two different dimension items. Type in height here. Tab to get to the other box. And that is width, obviously. So type width and hit enter. You can see our parameter pops up. We push enter. It accepts it. So now we've got a box that's defined properly as our width and our height. And if we wanted to make a border of that, we double click, modify, offset, and now we've got a box that says, what do you want to make that size? And I want to type ply. So you can see it moved us in 0.72 inches, and I click enter. We've got now our proper plywood thickness by our length and our width. Height and our and our width, sorry. Let's make these mitered corners. So select line, go up here in the corner and click from the inside to the outside, very obvious. Push escape to get out of that. So now we've got mitered corners on all of our corners. Let's click finish sketch. I'm going to save this as cabinet example. So now here's what we need to do. If we right click, you can pivot around, and we're going to go to extrude again. Select two of these two sides opposite each other. I'm going to do the left and the right. And that we're going to type depth. And we get the depth we put in as that parameter earlier, which I think was 24 inches. Click OK. Do that again. If you want to repeat something, you can right click. The last thing you did is right at the top. Repeat extrude, or E if you know the keyboard commands. The top and the bottom, obviously. Type depth, enter, and it's going to immediately tell you to join. So join the left and the right pieces. We actually don't want that because we want to represent these as actual pieces we would make of a cabinet. So click on the drop down, new body, and that will keep it from joining the other pieces. Click OK. If we turn off our sketch here, open the bodies up, you can see we now have 4 distinct bodies. You can turn these off, see the miter we made. So that's pretty simple. Another quick fix we could do here, we go into the sketch again, double click. If we wanted to make dado dividers, we could offset that like we did before. Right double click, left click. Doesn't like me anymore. Hold shift and select the outside border one at a time. Go to modify, offset, type ply divided by 2. So that's just having the thickness of the plywood, which is a hefty dado. Click OK. And now we've got something we can draw from. I like to just click a line here. Select the inside line of the dado line, the halfway mark. Make sure it's straight all the way down. You see that perpendicular. So we've now drawn one. I'll do an offset with O. Type ply. Enter. So now we've got a divider that's exactly the same thickness as our plywood, and it has a dado depth. So we can dimension that with D here to the outside. Let's make that 12, and we can do that again a couple more times. Very basically, we could draw that out by hand. I resist doing this because it's not the right way to do it in Fusion. It's the kind of like dumb doing too much work version. So we've got another one. I could make these 12 apart again. I don't like that. I'm gonna delete all that crap. Go up to create rectangular pattern. So now we've got essentially an array command, and we can select both these pieces, and we can click a direction, which is left and right. We can say we want the spacing to be, the distance type to be spacing. So between each piece, we want that distance to be 12 inches. It's going the wrong way, so you just have to put a negative in the front. Let's say we wanted 5 of those, 4 of those, that'll be a little better. Push OK. So now it's dynamically going to update. Mostly, if I want to change something, I can just change a couple things instead of having to redraw each of those items. You could do the same with dimensioning each of these things, but we didn't have to draw each of those. Push finish. Turn on our sketch again. Let's extrude those. Select all of these. There's a couple ways to do this. We actually did a advanced parameters YouTube video that I'll put a card to here. It's probably a little above where you're at right now if you're watching this video, but I did an example just like this where it dynamically updates all of the dividers based on the width, the height, so that they're all evenly spaced kind of in perpetuity, no matter how you change the parameters, which is pretty nerdy and fun for me. So we want to extrude those to the depth parameter again, which is the same as typing 24, but this is better. Type depth. Depth doesn't work for some reason. Extrude. Make all my selections again. I don't know what happened there. If you accidentally select the wrong thing, you can hold Control or Command and get rid of it with that selection again. Let's try this again. Type depth, enter. That's going to ask if you want to cut or not. That's essentially making the dados, which is kind of interesting. I would say make new bodies. Okay. And from there, turn off that sketch. We've got our pieces made up for us. If we want to go back into parameters at this point, we could change the height to be 24 inches. And everything updates for us, and all of our spacings are perfect. Say we wanted the plywood to be 1/2 inch for some reason. Perfectly updated. Say we wanted the height to go back, the depth to be 18. Okay, you get the picture. All of that updates perfectly. To quickly make those datas, you could go to Modify and Combine, which is a bad name for Boolean. And we would select the target body being the top. We'd select tool bodies, each of these. We'd keep the tool so it doesn't disappear on us. Push OK. Repeat that. Right click, repeat combine. Select the bottom one, each of these. It's already pre-selected. Push OK. So now we've created our datas. If you select all these, push V is visibility. It'll hide all those. we've got datas. So that was a pretty easy model, something you could do real fast and get yourself a nice model. We can then make drawings from that by right-clicking and creating drawing, but we won't go into that right now. Yeah, there's a good example. Let's throw some materials on this, and that'll be the last thing we do. So A is appearance. Let's go to walnut, just for the hell of it. And here, let's do unfinished walnut. So I'm gonna click on that, drag it up here. Say we want all of these pieces. We just select shift and select all of those. Click walnut, drag it on. It's a little busy. How about some maple? Make this real fancy. Drag that guy up. I want this to be applied to bodies. Okay. There we go. So we've got a case that's walnut and a bunch of dividers that are maple. Pretty cool. Go up here to render. Let's get this view right. So you can see the power of how simple this is to get a quick representation of some kind of client idea or a thing you want to make for your house, or just really any project you'd like to do. This could legitimately take me probably less than 10 minutes, 5 minutes, depending on what I was trying to do. That wraps up this video. I hope this was helpful. If so, hit the thumbs up button and let us know in the comments if you have any questions. There will also be a blog post with the Fusion file example and other links and helpful things, so check that out in the description. Make sure to subscribe so you can catch the next video in the series. We're planning to cover more advanced modeling, renderings, drawings, and a bunch of other stuff. I'm shooting for weekly uploads on this, so typically it would be on Sunday mornings. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks.